Hi, Chef Ketke. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
It's my pleasure.
So, the James Beard Awards are coming up quickly, and they always have an incredible group of nominees. Do you have any predictions or have noticed any trends?
Well, those are two big questions. So let me answer the predictions part first because I mean we are super excited to have the James Beard Awards here in Chicago, 25th anniversary of the awards. That means that there's going to be a lot of great chefs coming to this city and experiencing our food culture. For us here at Kendall, as the #1 culinary and hospitality school in Chicago, this is a big moment. This is a moment we're very proud and we're really, really excited to share our experiences with our students and with the nominees. It's also really exciting for us because this year we had 5 graduates who were semifinalists and 2 who were nominees. And so, when you say who should we be looking for, here, I think home team advantage a little bit, right? So we're looking at Michelle Geyer, who's a chef up for Best Chef Midwest. She's up in Minneapolis, and on a very personal note, there's a chef here by the name of Beverly Kim. Her restaurant is called Parachute, and she is up for Best New Restaurant. And the thing here that's just I'm excited about. She was my student 16 years ago. And we've stayed in touch all these years. She even taught here for a little bit before she opened up Parachute. She's an amazing talent. And when I saw her name, come into the nominee category, I was thrilled. So fingers crossed. That's what we're rooting for. Now you also mentioned trends, and there's a bunch of really interesting trend stuff that are linked up with the James Beard Awards. First of all, on a sort of statistical note. If you look at the Rising Star category, in the past, around 14 or so people who were in that semifinalist category were kind of repeats. They'd been there before. That represents about 50%. This year, totally different. This year there's 4. And what that means is that there's a lot of healthy stuff going on around the country with lots of new faces that are coming forward as being exceptional. So that's super neat. The other thing is that here at Kendall, we're about quality education. What does that mean? That means we're looking to the future. That means we're looking into our crystal ball of food service and saying, what does this world look like in 5 years? Because that's the world our students go into. And so that means we spend a lot of time looking at trends. And we've, basically come up with a bunch of trends that we've been watching. We've niched these out. And when we saw the nominees, we looked at their menus and said, wow, they're just reinforcing all these trends that we've niched out. So let me give you 3 big ones. The first one is what we call the old is now new. And this concept is about things that were popular, sort of went away, and they've come back, but they've come back differently than they were originally. Things like cider, for instance. The hard cider, the alcoholic, the fun cider is back, and it's back in very interesting ways. Chefs are doing really neat things with it. Or punch. I mean, who would have imagined the punch bowl that, I grew up, at parties with 7-Up and sherbet and who knows what else, is back. And it's back with really interesting variations where chefs are using interesting, different alcohols, different bitters, unusual fruit juices to create combinations of punches that are really, really kind of fun. And of course, then it goes in the middle of the table. It's a communal thing that's shared. So watch those. That's big. The second big trend is what we call the side becomes the star. And these are ingredients that were just sort of hanging out. They've always been there. They've been in that supporting role. Well, now they're being moved into the limelight. For instance, carrots. I mean, carrots have been around forever, but all of a sudden, chefs are kind of going, wait a minute, that carrot can actually be the star of the show. And so we see things like, roasted miso glazed carrots. We see smoked carrots. We see carrot fondue. We see desserts with carrots, carrot mousse with a coffee glaze, interesting things. Or we see this little trend of charcuterie 2.0. Now, I taught charcuterie for years. And so when I saw charcuterie platters sort of come back a few years ago, I was like, oh, this is like heaven for me. But what was interesting is that you had mustard and you had little pickles on the side of those plates. Well, those supporting elements are now being moved into really center stage. What does that mean? That means that Chefs are making their own pickles out of just about anything. They're making their own preserves, and they're making their own mustards, unusual, unique, wonderful mustards. The last trend is ramen. Now I know, ramen's like, wait a minute, we all grew up eating ramen, instant noodles, inexpensive, food. Well, a number of years ago, chefs started to look at ramen a little differently and say, this is something that really can be a very quality-oriented dish where chefs can really apply their creativity. And what we're seeing is a mega trend of ramen. What that means is that ramen is a force, and ramen is going to be around for quite a while because it satisfies some level of comfort food within us, and at the same time it lets the chefs really experiment and have fun. I mean, imagine this off of one of the nominees' menus. A ramen that's composed of smoked white cabbage, of crispy prawns, of roasted pork broth, miso, scallions, and of course the noodles. I mean, don't you just sort of start to salivate? So ramen's going to be here for a while.
Yeah. Well, you have hit on probably all of my favorite things. I'm a huge ramen fan, and now I'm super thirsty and I want some punch. So thank you for that.
I love that. That's perfect.
I was reading an article by a Southern chef, and he said he got to visit France and he spoke to Paul Bocuse, and what Paul Bocuse told him was learn technique first and then apply that to your region and to your heritage. What kind of advice do you give your students coming in about, developing their careers and how to one day become a James Beard Award winner or nominee?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what Paul Bocuse said is absolutely spot on, and that is absolutely our philosophy here at Kendall. But when we talk about how do people become those one-day James Beard nominees, those who are going to win, it really boils down to three ingredients. It's what we call the right attributes, it's about internationality, and it's about real world. And so the right attributes really is comprised of passion, discipline, and intensity. It's what I tell our students here in Chicago. It's what, Kendall is involved in many campuses around the world in many countries. It's the same message we give to them. And frankly, everybody on that list of nominees has those ingredients. They're passionate, they're disciplined, and they have a lot of intensity. Now, the second big ingredient is internationality. Because today, we don't live in a world where you can just do your little thing in one little corner of the world. We are completely interconnected now. And so the future is really for those people who understand internationality and know how to function in that world. And it's something we take really seriously here at Kendall. We have between 50 and 60 nationalities of students on our campus at any given time, which provides a learning opportunity and an opportunity for discussion as people share their culture and their cuisine. It's amazing. And then the last one is real world. And this is really advice to culinary students, because it's great to be in the culinary classroom. That's important. But you also have to have that infusion of real world. For us at Kendall, that looks like we have three restaurants. And each one of those restaurants is a classroom, but it's a real restaurant. So for instance, students may serve 400 people in 1.5 hours in one restaurant. Or when they're in our fine dining restaurant, that's in the Michelin Guide, it's a real restaurant here in Chicago. And so you learn things in those restaurants like, not just the stress and the intensity, but also the soft skills, like timing and organization and teamwork and all that. And then after the restaurant, you go into internship, and you have to get a good, solid internship. That's critical. It's something we take very seriously. Our students only go into places where they're great places where they're going to learn a lot. And quite frankly, this is a great food city. There's not enough students that we can supply for all the chefs that want them, our students in Chicago and around the country. And then the last ingredient is, or I should say, after that is then what do? You go get a job. And the advice for culinary students is, look at that James Beard list of semifinalists, of nominees. That is the kind of caliber of restaurant where you want to be working. That's the caliber of chef that you want to work for, because you want to go somewhere where you're going to learn at Mach speed, where you're going to be challenged to grow very, very quickly. So that's what we tell our students.
Wow. I love everything you're saying, Chef Ketke. Can you tell me where can we find more information on culinary trends?
Yep, just go to our website. It's kendall.edu, so kendall.edu, and everything is right there.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, and I will certainly be taking a look at Kendall's website because it sounds like they have some great stuff going on.
Indeed, we do. Lots of stuff all the time.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Have a great day.